of real. Okay, so these are all real numbers. Rational means you can write it as a fraction. Irrational, you can't write it as a fraction. What are the natural numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the counting numbers, right? Natural is, if I were just naturally going to start counting, what would I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are the whole numbers? 0 and the natural numbers, right? So the whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, and so on and so forth. And then what are integers?
The negatives.
The negatives. So -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, going in both directions. So if you're thinking about all those categories, which one could not describe a -14? We said it's rational. Is it a whole number? No, because it's negative. Okay, so the answer here is it can't be B because it's a negative. It can be an integer. It is an integer, -14. So then none of the above, because whole number is one that didn't work. Okay, it says which equations have graphs that are perpendicular? So really all you have to look at to determine perpendicular is what part of it? How do we determine if lines are perpendicular? Their slope. If they're going to be perpendicular, they're going to have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay, so look here, my slope is -3. What's my slope on that number 2?
1.
It would be 1, right? The number out in front of your x. So that's a slope of 1. This one has a slope of 3, and this one has a slope of 1/3. So of all of those equations, only 2 of them are perpendicular. Which 2?
1 and 5.
The first one, right? A -3 slope with a positive 1/3 slope. So 1 and 4 are going to be perpendiculars. Okay. And then number 5, you said?
Yes.
Which ones are functions? Remember, when it's a graph and you have to determine if it's a function, you just do the vertical line test. So you're going to do, could I draw a vertical line through and never hit more than 1 point? Is that a function? Number 1?
Yes.
Yes, that one is yes, it's a function. Is this a function? No, because you hit 2 at the same time. So this is not a function. Is this one a function? Yes. And is this one a function? No. So the 2 that are functions are number 1 and number 2. Just do the vertical line test. What if it's not the vertical line test? How do you determine if something's a function if we just know points?
If there's a repeating x.
If there are repeating x's, it is or isn't? It is not. You cannot have repeated x values, okay? If you can have repeated y values, you cannot have repeated x values. Okay, other questions? Jada.
Can you number 4 for chapter 3?
Number 4 on chapter 3. Okay, so this one is substitution or elimination. And you may use whichever one you like. I think elimination makes a lot more sense right here. So I would do elimination. With elimination, we typically try to make them opposites in class. You don't have to. If you don't make them opposites, what do you have to do? If you have the same coefficient, then you're going to have to subtract instead, right? So you can do that. Like right now, you could just subtract these 2 equations. It's just that negatives get real hairy. So I always say make them opposites and then just add them together. So if we're going to make them opposites, let's just make this one opposite of what it is. So a -2x, a positive y, and a -2, right? I just multiplied everything by -1. So now I'm looking at these 2. Okay, ignore this guy. We just swapped him out for a different one. We're going to add these together. So 2x plus a -2x, that's 0. That goes away. -2y plus y is a -1y, or you can just call it a -y. equals 4 plus a negative 2 is 2. So if you divide by negative 1 or multiply by negative 1, y is going to be a negative 2. Okay, then what?
And then you
Plug it in. I would probably plug it into this bottom one here. You don't have to. You can plug it into either one. Negative 2x plus a negative 2, so you could say minus 2 if you want, equals negative 2. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I get a negative 2x equals 0. For some reason, this always freaks people out. What's your next step? Divide by negative 2. Don't let a 0 make you think I did something wrong. Zeros are okay. You're allowed to divide by a 0. You just can't, sorry, you're allowed to divide a 0. Yes, you can't divide by 0. So if I divide this, x is just 0, right? So your answer is 0, negative 2. Okay. Other questions? Sam?
Can you do number 8 on chapter 3 and number 2?
Yeah, remind me in a minute when we get back to that. Thank you. Okay, so number 8, and like I said, it was supposed to say setup only. I must have shared with you a different version. I apologize. But it says you have 10 fewer quarters than dimes and 5 fewer nickels than quarters. The total value of the coins is $4.75. How many quarters, nickels, and dimes do you have? So if you want to keep this real basic and straightforward, call this Q, N, and D. Now, if you want to call it X, Y, and Z, that's fine. I just think it leaves more room for error when you don't give it the same letter because you get confused which one is which. So the first thing it says you have 10, what is fewer? Subtraction. 10 fewer quarters than dimes. Now think about, like, wrap your brain around that, because sometimes people want to subtract the wrong thing. You have 10 fewer quarters than dimes. So which one is the bigger one? What do you have more of? You have more dimes. So if you have 10 fewer quarters, which one are you subtracting from?
Subtracting the quarters from the dimes.
Subtracting the 10 from. Sorry, what are you subtracting the 10 from? The dimes or the quarters?
Dimes.
The dimes. So you're going to say your number of quarters is the dimes minus 10, right? 10 fewer quarters than dimes. So dimes minus 10 will give you the number of quarters. There are more dimes, so you have to subtract 10 to get your quarters. And then 5 fewer nickels than quarters. So again, you're going to have more quarters. So quarters minus 5 is going to give you your nickels. It says the total value, the value of the coins is $4.75. How do you set that one up? What is the value of a quarter? 0.25. Okay, so you're going to take your quarters, 0.25 times the number of quarters, plus the value of a dime, so 0.10 or 0.1 is fine, times D, plus the value of a nickel, 0.05 times the number of nickels, and that should equal the total value, $4.75. Remember on these ones, we always tried to take, whenever there was dollars involved, right, we put all the dollar information together. So 0.25, 0.10, 0.05, that's going to go with the value of them, whereas this is just how many of each thing are we using. Okay. And that's all you needed to do with that. You don't need to solve one that fancy. Just be able to set it up. And then what was the other one you said?
Number 2 for chapter 3.
Up above.
Right down.
A different number 2? This number 2. That one?
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, which is a solution of the system of inequalities? With this one, yeah, I would say the easiest way in my head to do these well, I guess that's up to you. I think it's easiest if you just plug in the numbers. Because if I have an X value and a Y value here, and I plug that in, so this says my Y value is 3. Is 3 minus 4 greater than 0? Three minus 4, is it greater than 0?
No.
Negative 1, right, is not greater than 0. So that one doesn't work. If I plug it in, it doesn't make a true inequality. So look at the second one. If I plug in a 2 right here, 2 minus 4, is that greater than 0? It's not, right? So that one doesn't work. If I plug in a 5, 5 minus 4, is that greater than 0?
Yes.
Okay, so that one works. So now check the next one to make sure it still works. So 5 is greater than or equal to 1 plus 1. Does that work?
Yes.
5's greater than 2, right? So this works in both of those. So that is a solution to the inequality, which means this one's not going to work. If you plug in a 2, which we already did, it's not true. So H will be your solution for that one. Okay. Other questions? Yeah, Sean.
Number 6, page 7.
Yes. Oh, I love these, you guys. These are so fun. Okay, this top one, we're gonna treat it like we're graphing an equation, y equals x minus 5. So if this is y equals x minus 5, where do I go first?
Down 5.
Down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you wanna make a little note to yourself. Do you remember what kind of line this is when it's greater than? Is it dotted or solid? This one's dotted, okay? If it doesn't have the bar, it's dotted. This one is solid. Okay, so my slope for this line is what? 1. Okay, so we're gonna go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and we said it's a dotted line. Okay, do you remember how we check what side we shade on?
0, 0.
Plug in 0, 0. So is 0 greater than 0 minus 5?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So we shade to which side? Above or below? Above. Above and to the left, right? On the 0, 0 side, we're going to shade. Okay, your second one, I would put it into slope-intercept form. You could do the cover-up method. You could do the intercepts. I just don't think it lays out quite as nicely, but you can. So if we rearrange, y is less than or equal to negative 3x minus 2. So you're going to plot a negative 2, down 2. And then the slope is negative 3. So down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. That's a solid line. So something like that. And then y is less than or equal to, so if I plug in a 0, 0 right now, is 0 less than or equal to negative 3 times 0 minus 2? So is 0 less than or equal to negative 2? No. So we want to shade on the 0, 0 side, which would be to the right. Right? So your solution here is all of this, all of your overlap. And just make sure you shade it darker when it's a solution so we can see what your actual answer is for that. What else?
So that was great. 0.
So what?
Why did you shade it up? Like, why is that?
Because 0 is greater than negative 5. Sorry. Did I just do it the wrong way?
You're supposed to shade down,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I shaded the wrong way, you guys. I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. Forget me. 0 is less than, that was the one we just did, right? 0 is less than or equal to -2. Not true, so don't shade the 0, 0 side. My bad. So shade this darker because this will be the solution. Sorry. Hooray for not writing these in with pencil on paper, right?
Number 19 for chapter 2.
Number 19, chapter 2. Yes. So this one, the whole like vertical horizontal multiple, that was just where we would say it moved this far to the left or to the right and this far up or this far down, and then graph it. So we're looking at x plus 3 in the bars. First of all, what shape is this graph? It's a V, right? Whenever you have absolute value, it's a V. Where are you moving for this graph? I've got my papers all in a mess here. Where?
Are you moving stories?
So plus 3, when it's inside and it's positive, what do? The opposite. So if it's a plus 3, you're actually moving left. So you're going to go left 3 for this. Where do you go for this one? Down 2. When it's outside, that's up or down. When it's inside, that's left and right, but inside goes opposite, right? So if I go left 3, 1, 2, 3, down 2, that's right here. Remember this A term out in front is what determines kind of your slope setup, if you will. So really you're just going up 1 over 1 in both directions. Okay, and this is equal to, so it's a solid line. This is not an inequality anymore. So your graph's gonna look like that.
If you have the absolute value symbols, will those always be a V?
Always a V. Yep. This is always a V. Yeah.
Can you do 3 and 7 on chapter 3 or page 7?
Page 7. What page am I on right now? 5. Tell me the numbers again.
3 and 7.
3 and 7. Okay. So substitution or elimination. Which one's easier here? Substitution or elimination? Substitution. Remember, substitution's the one that you isolate something and you have both your y's isolated here. So we're going to take what y equals and we're going to replace the y in our other one. So we're going to say 2x plus 8 equals 3x minus 1. So now take away your 2x and you have x, add your 1 and you have 9. So x is 9. And then you can plug that into either one of them. I would probably just plug it in right here. So 3 times 9 minus 1 is 27 minus 1, or 26 for your y value. So you get 9, 26. Okay. And then was the other one 7? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
The graphing one? This number 7?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one, it's like you're graphing a line again, but it's an inequality, so you'll have some shading involved. I'll try to do it right the first time this time. Where do you move for that first one? Up 2. So up 2 is going to put you right here. And then a slope of 1, so up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, like this. Is this a solid or dotted line? This is solid. Okay, so now we're going to plug in 0, 0. 0 is less than or equal to 0 plus 2. So 0 is less than or equal to 2. Is that true? So which side are we going to shade on?
To the 0, so.
To the 0 side. So you're going to go kind of down and to the right. Okay. The second one, what shape is this graph? This is a V. Okay, so this minus 3, where are you moving for that? Left or right?
Right.
To the right 3. And then this one? up. Okay, so to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, up 1 is going to put us at the point 3, 1. And then it's a V. The A term out in front is 1. So you're going up 1 over 1. What if it was a negative out in front? Then down 1 over 1. Yeah, so this is going to be a dotted line for both of these. Okay, so there's your dotted line. Then you plug in 0, 0 to check it. So is 0 greater than the absolute value of 0 minus 3 plus 1? What is the absolute value of 0 minus 3? It's 3, right? It's a positive 3. Absolute value makes it positive. So 3 plus 1 is 4. So this is saying 0 is greater than 4. True statement? 0 is not greater than 4. So you want to shade away from the 0, 0, which means you're going to shade inside the V like this, which means your answer is the overlap, which is this little rectangle guy, an infinite rectangle that is, just like that.
Where did you plug in for to solve for this one?
What did I plug in here?
Yeah.
0, 0. So 0 for your X and 0 for your Y. Yeah, 0, 0 is always the easiest one. Unless it goes through 0, 0, then you have to pick a different point. But otherwise, pick 0, 0 every time. Yeah.
Can you go back to 3? On those, you have to put it, can you just do x equals 9 and y equals 26?
Yeah, that's fine. I won't mark off if you don't write it as a point on those. Other questions? Yeah.
Whenever you graph the graph and it's like y equals x minus 1 in parentheses, and then it's something minus y, is the x always going to be the opposite?
Say that again. X, if you graph y equals x minus 1, and then what's the other one?
Or if those would be in parentheses, and then it's, you put the y, so it would be, if it was like a point of 2 and 6, it would be x minus 2, and then plus 6.
I'm not following. You want to give me an equation to graph? Or
Like, for number 19,
on what page?
page 5.
Number 19. So when it's an absolute value problem? When it's got the bars?
You have parentheses too, right?
Sure. But that was like a quadratic then. If it was in the parentheses, it would be like that squared.
Yeah, that's fine, but
Where are
would
we at?
parentheses always be opposite, like the x?
Oh, I see. Whatever's inside the bars or whatever's inside the parentheses. Yeah, so if it was like y equals x minus 3 squared plus 2, right? This is always opposite in terms of left and right, and this is always the same as what you would expect in terms of up and down. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this would just be a parabola instead of a V, right? When it's got the squared and the parentheses instead of the bars. Yeah. Yes. We'll get to those in the next chunk also. Any other questions? Yeah, Johnny.
23 on page 5.
Is this page 5? Yes. Okay, so what they were hoping for here is that you would plug in, so it says let x equal the number of years since 2003. So this would be year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and year 6. So this is your L1, and this is going to be your L2, your x values and your y values, if you will. Let me pull up my calculator on the screen up here, and I'll show you how to plug that in. Okay, so remember you go to stat for this and then edit. And then we will clear both of these out. So clear, enter, arrow over to L1, hit clear, enter. So we're gonna plug in so 1 through 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then L2 is 1582 and 1635 and 1674 and 1723 and 1745 and 1801. Okay, so it says, write the equation of the line of best fit. Do you remember how to do that? You kind of did it for me pretty recently. You just didn't quite do it with all the like storing if you want to store stuff. You really didn't have to store on this if you don't want. How do you find your equation?
Like stat.
Stat. Calc, right? And then this one is, we're finding a trend line. This is the linear regression is what we're looking for. The line of best fit is your linear regression. It's a line, right? So you're gonna hit 4 and then enter, 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 enter. You don't need to store it here because they're not asking you, they just want the line. They want the equation of the line. So here's all your details for the line, okay? You have, the equation would be y equals, your A term is 42.11, and then your x, and then plus 1545.93, okay? So then the question says estimate the enrollment in 2015. Now here's the tricky part. They told us that the first year is 2004. So that means in 2015, right, that's going to be the 12th year that we're working with. So you would plug a 12 in for in your setup, this X right here, you would plug a 12 in. So you would go 42.11 times 12 plus 1545.93, and that comes out to 2051.25. So the enrollment will be about 2051 people, we would say, for that one. How do you remember the process for graphing this?
Is it the dotted line?
What?
Because I was confused on.
Okay, first of all, do you remember what has to happen up here? If you have to clear this out, just clear both of them when you do that. You have to have your plots on, right? If you don't have your plots on, you won't see the graph. So if you go up here, plot 1, right? You're gonna arrow up and hit enter, and that will turn your plots on. If you want to store it, well, if you want to graph it, do you remember which one this was? 6 was the standard one that we did before. It's 9. Remember, it's the stat, right? When you click on stat, when we're putting things in stat, remember that's the one we're going to use to graph then. So Zoom 9 graphed it for you. And then if you want to store it and put your line of best fit in, that's when you do the stat calculate number 4. And if you store it, enter, enter, enter. Here's where you would store your regression equation. Do you remember what you pushed for that? Alpha, trace, and then y1 is where we're going to store it. Enter. And now calculate. If you graph it now, Zoom 9, you should have that line in. Okay? Alpha, trace, enter. That will store your y1 equation. So what it did for you is it just put your equation right here, right? This is the equation, the long fancy version of it anyway. Do you remember how to see the x values and the y values that you're using for that? If you just click window, it'll tell you your x min, your x max, your y min, your y max that you could put along the sides and the bottom edges, right? So that's all that process. This one technically didn't ask you to graph it, but I graphed it for you in the answer key. Other questions? Okay. Let's just real quick chat finals. Just to make sure, I'm gonna just keep saying it so you know everything you need. You need to bring a calculator. You need to bring pencils. You will have 50 multiple choice questions and a good chunk of like written questions. Maybe, I don't know, did I write it on there how many there were? 15, 16, something like that. So that one looks more like a normal test, right? The multiple choice, you're gonna fill in on a Scantron. So make sure that you're taking your time with the Scantron and writing everything in. You can write on your test everywhere. On the written portion, you must write right on the test, okay? Don't ask your proctor for scratch paper and then write it all there and then write answers on it, because I'm not checking scratch paper for accuracy. It's chaos, and it never goes well when people try to turn in a piece of scratch paper with all their work. I will put scratch paper in there for you if you feel like your multiple choice section is too cramped and you just want to be able to work stuff out. I don't check work on the multiple choice section at all. Multiple choice is right or wrong, okay? So just make sure with the multiple choice stuff, I'll put some scratch paper in there. You can work out whatever you want on scratch paper if you need it. There should be some room on the side that you can just work out right there. That would be, I feel like, the best bet, so you're not jumping all over the place on different pieces of paper, but that's up to you. But just know, on the written section, if you don't show work, I have to take all the points off, right? Just like a normal test. Show me what you're doing so that if you make a silly mistake, I can say, oh, that was just a half a point off of a 3-point problem. No big deal. But yeah, take your time. Think through what are reasonable answers. You've got this. I